Near to the end of Silent Hill Homecoming, Alex comes to the Church of the Holy Way. The outside world is a crimson wasteland of twisted metal and spinning fans. Inside, the atmosphere of the church is nearly unchanged. It is abandoned, floors rotting and art falling from the walls, but it is not so heavily touched by the otherworld. Central to the church level is a puzzle, which requires the player to explore the entire building in order to move forward. 5 plates must be located and returned to the center of the church. The placement of these plates and the story surrounding them creates an intricate web of meaning, leading to a major climax in the game's plot. The 5 plates have 5 symbols on them, and 5 different words associated with them. The kneeling man is associated with penitence. The sword is associated with vengeance. The tree is associated with desire. The candle is associated with sorrow, and the chalice is associated with sacrifice. All 5 are spread out in hidden areas in the church, and can be found and returned to the organ at any time. The locations in the church tell us a lot about the building as a whole. There is a baptismal font, a confessional, a statue of a crying woman, a large painting of a man, a woman, and a tree, many candles spread throughout, in addition to the general layout and architecture of the building. This is a Catholic church, the oldest form of Christianity in the world, and a faith with a strict adherence to a specific church layout and design that the Holy Way Church follows. The long nave, where the pews would be, is in front, beneath a vaulted ceiling. It leads to the sanctuary, a raised platform which would contain the choir, the pulpit, and the tabernacle. The organ itself has a box built into its base, in the same place a tabernacle would be, and it's this box that is the center of the puzzle. A tabernacle is a sealed box which contains the Eucharist, the bread used in communion, a ceremony that represents the Last Supper, in which consecrated bread and wine is given to the congregation. In Catholic tradition, the belief is that the bread is quite literally the body of Christ, that by consecrating it, Christ descends and is with us presently. The tabernacle is the house of God, quite literally containing His Spirit. The box which leads us out of the church is the box which houses God. Knowing this is a Catholic Church design lets us infer certain things about the puzzle and the items involved in it. It gives us a specific context in which to view and interpret the game's design. Given what items are found, where they are found, and what story beats occur here, it seems as if this is all building to the death of Adam's shepherd, the sacrifice that will redeem him. First, we'll discuss the tree plate, which is associated with desire. It's found behind a painting, which Alex has to cut in half to get to. It's one of 3. On the left is a woman in a veil holding white flowers. When Alex examines the painting, he says that she is alluring and vaguely familiar to him. The center is a tree, which when examined is said to be ancient and dying. Alex also says it reminds him of the tree in the hotel atrium. In fact, this is at least the 3rd tree to appear in the game. The plates used to get through the graveyard also included a tree split in half. The last image is of a man, wrapped up in the roots of the tree, limbs arranged as if he is about to attack. Alex says the man's eyes are fixed on the woman, and before entering the room, Alex receives a brief message on his radio, causing him to think Elle is in trouble. A man, a woman, and a tree. It's easy, given the setting, to immediately think of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. The painting is called Rites of Spring, a likely reference to a Russian ballet of the same name. The ballet is a celebration of the mystery and great surge of the creative power of spring. It focuses upon pagan traditions and is a celebration of our ancient natural roots, which ends with a man dancing himself to death as a form of sacrifice. Here begins the trend that will continue throughout the level: the man as a violent threat or repentant sinner, and the sacrifice that comes at the end of his life. The man is Alex's father. Here we have Adam attempting to hurt Eve. Alex's father is named Adam, and his wife is named Lillian, a possible reference to the mythical first wife of Adam named Lilith. The painting of Adam here is terribly evil. The pose is reminiscent of a famous painting of Lucifer, the fallen angel of Christianity. When taken as a whole, it's interesting how these three paintings of Eden don't resemble the traditional paintings of Eden found in most Western art. Central to these paintings are Adam and Eve, with the tree near or more often between them. The snake is often twirled around the tree or leaning out of a branch. The apple is typically present as well, but not always. In the homecoming painting, there is no fruit and no snake. No original sin. The woman holds beautiful white flowers, white being purity and innocence. Perhaps in Silent Hill, it's a reference to the white Claudia plant. She has a veil and a demure posture, rather unlike the more overtly sexual poses of most Eves in art. Adam is violent, angry, rooted to the earth to keep him from hurting his wife. He is a threat, and to move ahead, Alex has to cut him in half. This is the second time an Adam has been sliced in two in the game. The first was in Alex's dream in the hospital early on. The tree plate here is associated with desire, implying that the reason for Adam's anger is sexual. He is angry at Eve, or perhaps angry at Lilith. Many of the popular myths surrounding the idea of Adam's first wife center on the theory that she refused to be subservient to him and left the Garden of Eden. The next plate is the kneeling man, associated with penitence, repenting for guilt. It's found after a cutscene beside the confessional, in which Adam listens to a man admit to sins which are the exact crimes his father is guilty of. It tells us a lot about how Adam feels about his situation. He does feel guilty about how he treated Alex, but not for the reason behind it. Ultimately, he seems to agree it was necessary to kill Alex, but felt he'd been selfish in trying to drive a wedge between them to make it easier to kill him. Alex can choose to forgive or condemn him here, but either way, the kneeling man plate will appear afterwards. Nearby, the player will find two items: the unlit candle, needed to retrieve the candle plate, and a short note. It reads, excerpt from a psalm, "Blessed is the man who does not tread the path of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers." A psalm is a type of biblical literature, a book of the Hebrew and Christian Bibles, which comprises a collection of verses to be sung or recited. This psalm is actually the first one, Psalm 1:1. It is a discussion of what a good, godly man should and should not do, that a good man follows God's laws and does not mock or lie or walk the path of evil. One line describes the godly man as a tree planted by rivers of water that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf shall also not wither. Being godly will keep you healthy, like a green flowering tree. But all the trees we've found in this game so far are dying. The unlit candle must be taken to another room, opposite the baptismal font, which contains a raised platform and a statue of a crying woman. Look closely, and you can see water running beneath her eyes. Weeping statues are a staple of Catholic folklore, often proclaimed as real but rarely confirmed. Since the 17th century, believers have seen statues weep, cry blood, and even move. These statues are almost always Madonnas, or depictions of the Virgin Mary. This statue, possibly a crying Mary, will move her arms and release the candle plate, which represents sorrow, when the unlit candle is placed before her. There are dozens of candles around her, likely votive candles, another Catholic tradition. Candles are used most often in prayer and in mourning. They represent the presence of Christ and are lit as part of praying for someone or in honor of someone's passing. In front of the statue of the weeping woman, there is a small plaque above where the candle would be lit. It reads, "Question not your faith, but your devotion." This doesn't seem to be a direct quote from anywhere. The statement places faith against devotion. Faith, by definition, is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. In terms of God, it is belief without proof. Devotion, by definition, is religious worship, love, and loyalty for a cause. The idea seems to be that this person does not suffer in faith. They believe in God, but they suffer in devotion. They are not loyal to the cause. The parallels to Adam are clear. He believes in the cult's God, but fails to carry out his role in the cause, fails to kill his son. The chalice plate, representing sacrifice, is found in the baptismal font. To reveal it, the player spins a wheel that raises a cage, showing a dead body in the water. Baptism is a rite in which a person is reborn through Christ, symbolically reliving the death and resurrection, and in doing so, being forgiven past sins. The dead body and the plate, representing sacrifice, both focus in on the death of Christ, his sacrifice. The chalice is almost certainly a reference to his blood, the wine drunk during communion, the physical symbol of his sacrificial death. The last plate is the easiest to obtain, the sword plate, representing vengeance. It is leaning against a wall beneath a stained glass window. Like the painting of the Garden of Eden, this depicts 3 figures, split into 3 sections. In the center is a knight, his sword drawn as if to attack. To his left is another knight who is crying, his weapon still sheathed. To his right is a tall, monstrous figure, similar to both Valtiel and Pyramid Head in appearance. The split robe, gray torso, and masked face covered by red fabric bring both to mind. The spear in his hand splits the knight in 2, killing him. Spears are heavily associated with execution in Silent Hill. Since Silent Hill 2, they've appeared in art and cutscenes as methods of death. In medieval times, in European countries, people were often killed by the sword via beheading. An artwork of the time depicts the executioner standing behind the victim. They wore masks to hide their identities, as they were unpopular figures in the community. This practice was condoned by the Catholic Church for quite some time. Once all 5 plates are placed in the octagonal shape, they fold inward and reveal the path forward, barred by Alex's father, Adam Shepard, strung up like a victim of torture behind the church walls. This place is the center of the church, home of the tabernacle, which contains Christ's spirit, and where the altar would be, which was seen as the heart of the church, the representation of Christ's sacrifice and death. The crucifix would likely appear above this section of the church, depicting Christ in all his suffering misery. And here, where he would stand, we find Adam Shepard suffering for his sins. From the top right of the octagonal shape, we have the tree, desire, then the candle, sorrow, then the chalice, sacrifice, then the kneeling man, penitence, and the sword, vengeance. From sexual desire, Adam and Lilith produced children. From that came sorrow, knowing they would have to kill one of them. And that is sacrifice, the act they will have to perform, which then leads to the kneeling man, the penitent father who regrets his actions. And last is vengeance, Alex's suffering returned to its perpetrator, his father killed for his sins. Throughout this section of game, we find references to and symbols of redemption through death. The crying statue, the confessing man, the execution of the knight, cutting the painting of Adam, tearing his body in half. The actions taken also reflect this theme. Adam, through Alex's actions, is able to confess his sins. He is baptized. He is mourned with the votive candle and the crying woman. He is killed via execution, which in this context is the only way he can be redeemed. Christ died to redeem the sins of man. Adam dies to redeem his sins toward his son. When Alex opens the heart of the church, he finds his father hung from the ceiling and is not concerned. He says he forgot him long ago. Trying to cut him down isn't even considered. Still, he reacts in shock and horror when the boogeyman appears and follows through on the promise of the stained glass window. The man is torn in half, and Alex stands in shocked horror. The Pyramid Head look-alike disappears, never to be seen again in the canon endings. It seems he existed solely for this moment, to execute Adam Shepard. The story of Silent Hill Homecoming is that of a twisted and dark Garden of Eden. Shepherd's Glen, the name of their town, brings to mind an idyllic, natural place. We have the father, Adam, the original man, the mother, Lilith, the rebellious woman. We have two sons, the younger killed by the elder, who is then sent off by the family, cursed to wandering, just as Cain was cursed after he killed his brother Abel. But in this case, we see the full fallout of the tragic tale and the destruction of the whole family, the withering of the tree. Another note can be found in the church, the opening line of a Christian hymn, which well summarizes the themes of this portion of the story. Thank you for listening to this episode of Silent Hill Symbolism. I'm happy to announce we now have Silent Hill Symbolism merchandise, 4 t-shirt designs based on episode topics and the Silent Hill Symbolism logo. You can find them either listed beneath my YouTube videos or through the link to my Spring site in the description. You can also buy my books on Silent Hill or become a member of my Patreon or YouTube. If you like what I do and want to see it continue, please consider doing so. Or you can share this with your friends. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you all next time.